Welcome to the first chapter of Science Matters in Our Surrounding. Let us begin this chapter with the question, what is matter? So when we see in our surroundings, we see different things which have different shapes, size and textures. Everything in this universe is made up of some material and scientists have named this as matter. So the air we breathe, the food we eat, the clothes we wear, the bench, the table, the chair, everything is matter. Even small drop of water or a tiny particle of grain, that too are matter. And we notice that all these things occupy space and they have mass. So we can define matter as anything that occupies space and have mass is called as matter. How do human beings perceive matter? Since ancient times, human beings have tried to understand their surrounding. If we talk about the ancient Indian philosophers, they classified matter into basic 5 elements, and these 5 elements were called as Panch Tattva, which includes the sky, the earth, the air, the water and the fire. According to them, all the matter are made up of these 5 basic elements, whether the matter is living or non-living. And later on, the Greek philosophers also came to this similar type of classification. If we talk about the modern time scientists have classified matter majorly into 2 different types of classification. The first classification is classification of matter based on the physical property, and the second type of classification is classification of matter on the basis of chemical properties. So these are the 2 main types of classification of matter which we use in the modern day. Out of these 2, we are going to talk about the classification of matter based on physical property in this chapter, and the chemical properties will be discussed in the later chapters. Of what all matters are made up of. For a long time, there were 2 different groups of people with different mentalities. One group used to think that matter is continuous like a piece of wood. Let's say if we take a piece of wood, that is a single piece of wood and that's it. That single piece is a matter. And the other group used to think that matter is made up of particles like sand. Like if we take a handful of sand, that handful of sand is made up of small particles of grain, and that is what the second group used to think about. Now, out of these 2 groups, which group is correct? To understand this, we will do an activity. In this activity, I have taken a glass, and in this glass there is some amount of water, and I am marking the level of water which is present in this glass. So the marker pen is quite light, but I hope that you are able to see the level of water which I have marked. Now what I am going to do is I am going to take a little amount of salt and I am going to add this salt in this water. Now I will dissolve this salt into this water by mixing with the help of a spoon. So here almost all the salt has been dissolved, but there is no increase in the water level, as you can see. So where has the salt gone? So here we have to take the idea that matters are made up of particles. This water is made up of particles, and that particles have space between them. And when I mixed another type of matter, that is salt, in it, the particles of salt has get into the space between the particles of water. So here the second group of people who used to think that matter is made up of particles is correct, and yes, matters are made up of particles. How small are these particles of matter? To understand the size of these particles, we are going to perform another activity in which I have taken here 3 glasses and they have some amount of water in them. And now I have taken this ujala which I am going to add in the first glass. So I added 7 drops of ujala in this first glass, and I will mix it with the water to get a uniform consistency, uniform color. Now I will take this cap, and what I am going to do is fill this cap with this solution, and I am going to transfer this solution in this blank water, and we will notice that the color has been changed. Now I will take this solution into this cap and I will transfer this into the third glass, and again we will notice that the color of this water has changed to this blue. Obviously the color is little light than this. This experiment suggests us that just few drops of ujala can color a large volume of water. that is 1 or 2 drops of ujala contains millions of particles which goes on dividing themselves into smaller and smaller particles. We can do the same experiment with the help of Dettol, where we will find that after diluting it multiple times, the smell of Dettol, that particular smell of Dettol, will still be there. So the fact is, the particles of matter are very, very small. They are small beyond our imagination. We cannot even imagine how small the particles of matter are. So we have figured out that matter is made up of particles, and these particles are very small. What are the other characteristics of particles of matter? Number 1, particles of matter have space between them, and this we have understood with the 2 activities which we did. The first one, when we mix salt with water, the particles of salt got into the space between the particles of water, and that is the reason why the level of water did not increase. In fact, in the case of mixing ujala with water, the particles of ujala got into the space between the particles of water, and we will notice a minimum amount of increase in the water level if we will add little more amount of ujala. So the fact to be noted is that particles of matter have space between them. Okay, and this we can understand in our daily life too, when we make tea or coffee or nimbu pani, something like that. When we mix 2 different types of matter, the particles of one type of matter gets into the space between the particles of other. So particles of matter have space between them. To understand the other 2 characteristics of particles of matter, we are going to do some more activities. So here in this particular activity, I have an incense stick here, and now at this moment I cannot get the smell of this incense stick. So I will take this incense stick close to my nose, and then I will try to smell it. Yes, so when I took it close to my nose, I can smell this incense stick. Okay, now I am going to light this incense stick. So when I lit this incense stick, yes, it is producing the smoke now. And now when I keep this incense stick a little distance from me, the smoke which it is producing in the form of gas, when it will come closer to me, I am able to smell it. I can smell it from a distance. Now in this activity, here I have 3 glasses and they all have almost equal amount of water in them. But the difference is these 2 have the normal water and this one is having warm water. Now what I will do is I will take ujala and I will put this 1 drop of ujala in this 2 glass, one in normal water and the other in the hot water along the side of the glass. So let us do. So here it directly slipped down into the water, and you can see that this one is having hot water and this one is having cold water, normal water. And you can see that the diffusion rate of this glass is faster than this one. And the difference between them is just the temperature of water. Now I am going to take some honey and I am going to drop 1 drop of honey in this one. So honey took a little more time to slip down into the water and it directly went down and settled down there. Because honey is comparatively denser than this ujala. So honey will also get dissolved in this water, but it will take time. But here in this 2 case we can see that this is faster than one, and the difference between them is just the temperature. This is hot and this is normal water. So here with this 2 experiment, with this 2 activity, what we can conclude is that particles of matter are constantly moving. In the case of incense stick, when it was not lit up, to get the smell of that incense stick, I had to take that incense stick closer to my nose to get the smell. There the particles also are moving in the solid case, but they are moving at a very small scale. Okay, and so because of that movement, when I took it close to my nose, I got the smell of incense stick. But when I lit that incense stick, when it was producing the smoke in the gaseous form, the gas moved more faster, the particles of gas moved more faster, and it easily reached to my nose and I got the smell. In this 3 case actually, also we can see that because the particles are moving, they are mixing with each other. If the particles will not move, they are not going to mix with each other. So here we conclude with this two experiment in brief is that particles of matter are constantly moving. Now this movement can be faster or slower, it will depend on different factors. And one of the factors we figured out is temperature, right? So how do these particles move? These particles are constantly moving because they possess energy which is called as kinetic energy. So because of this kinetic energy, they are moving and getting mixed with each other. And when we increase the temperature of any matter, the kinetic energy also increases and they mix with each other more faster. They diffuse with each other more faster. So here I use the term diffusion many times. So what is diffusion? The intermixing of two different types of matter on their own is called as diffusion. The intermixing of two different types of matter, here two different types of matter is water and ujala, they intermixed with each other on their own, this is called as diffusion. And the diffusion rate will increase with increase in temperature. As we can see, it has got the complete uniform composition, but still this normal water is struggling. You can see the ujala has settled down and it will take more time to get the uniform color. To understand the third characteristics of particles of matter, there is another activity given in which there are 4 groups are formed of having n number of children in one group. Now the first group will make a chain by holding each other like the Idumishmi dancers do, which is given on the screen. The second group will hold each other with their hands like the way which we do in Sakdi. The third group will make a chain by just touching each other with the help of this fingertip. And the fourth group will try to break the chain, these 3 different chains. Here it is very clear that in the case of first group it will be more difficult to break the chain, and in the case of the third group it will be the easiest to break the chain. So here we have to relate the particles of matter with the players of these games, of these 3 groups. So as they were holding each other, in the same way the particles of matter also hold each other. To understand more about this, we have 2 more activities. In this activity I have taken a iron nail, a chalk and a rubber band, and I have taken a hammer. Now I will try to break these 3 things with the help of hammer. So in the case of nail, I am not able to break this nail with the help of hammer. In the case of rubber band, I failed to break this rubber band with the help of hammer. In the case of chalk, I succeeded to break this chalk into 2 pieces. So hammer broke this chalk. Now I will take a cutter and I will try to cut these 3 different things. First the iron nail. No, I am not able to cut this iron nail with this cutter. Second is this chalk. Yes, I will be able to cut this chalk, but I will not do it. It will become messy over here. Okay, but you understand that I am able to cut this chalk with this cutter. It will take some time. The third is the rubber band, and I will try to cut this rubber band and I succeeded to cut this rubber band. Okay, now the third thing which we are going to do is I am going to try to stretch these 3 things, and obviously it is not going to be stretched. The chalk is not going to be stretched, but in the case of rubber band this is going to be stretched. These 3 things are matter, and what we have to understand by doing all this activity is that these are made up of particles obviously, and the particles are attracted to each other in different way, and because of that it is existing in this particular state, in this particular form, in this particular shape, because the particles of matter attracts each other. Also we will do another activity in which we already have this water in this glass, and I will try to cut this surface of water with my fingertip, but I will fail to make a cut in the surface of water, because as soon as I will pass my finger, the water particles have attraction between them, and as a result they will remain connected to each other and they will again join and make the surface as it was before. So all this activity concludes that the third characteristic is particles of matter attract each other. They have force of attraction between them, and this force of attraction will differ in different types of matter. Which of the following are matter? According to the definition, anything that occupies space and have mass is called as matter. So as per that, from the given list, chair, air, almonds, lemon water and smell of perfume are clearly matter because they occupy space and they have mass. Now out of all this, Love and hate are not matter because they are emotions. They don't occupy space and they don't have any mass. So they are not matter. Similarly, smell, just it is smell, and smell is a verb which is not anything which is not occupying any space and do not have any mass. If it is written smell of something like smell of perfume or smell of some food or smell of anything, that will be considered as a matter. But if it is written only smell, then it is not a matter. And thought is again a verb, to think. So thought also does not occupy any space and not have any mass, so that is why thought is also not a matter. Give reasons for the following observation. The smell of hot sizzling food reaches you several meters away, but to get the smell from cold food, you have to go close. So when your mother cooks some tasty sizzling food in the kitchen, you get the smell of that hot sizzling food sitting in the hall. But in the case of cold food, you have to go close to get the smell of that cold food. Why? Because of the difference of their temperature. As we saw in the previous activities, that when we increase the temperature, the particles get kinetic energy. They have more kinetic energy and so they can diffuse easily. So in the case of hot food, the smell of the food gets mixed with the air, and when it blows, when the wind comes to your nose, you get the smell of hot sizzling food. And hence this will not happen in the case of cold food because they do not have that extra amount of high kinetic energy. A diver is able to cut through water in a swimming pool. Which property of matter does this observation show? One of the characteristics of particles of matter is particles of matter attract each other, and this force of attraction between the particles will vary in different types of matter. If we talk about water, the particles of water attract each other, yes, but the force of attraction is not that strong, and also here the particles of water have space between them, and hence a diver is able to cut through the water and can swim and go ahead in a swimming pool. What are the characteristics of particles of matter? So there are three main characteristics of particles of matter. Number one, particles of matter have space between them. Number two, particles of matter are continuously moving. And number three, particles of matter attract each other.